Alrighty, welcome back to Retang Does Sports, folks. This is the third episode, and I'm really excited to get into this episode. We'll be looking at controversy over the weekend, looking at the rugby, particularly in the Springboks versus Italy game, and then we will also review the New Zealand versus France game, as well as the England versus Argentina game, going through various player ratings for each of those squads. And then at the end, I will do a combined player of the weekend 15, combining all the players who I believe deserve to be named player of the weekend. Alrighty, let's get right into it. What a weekend of rugby. The Springboks coming back from a shaky win against a weakened Italian side, might I add, at Loftus Versfeld the previous week, came back to Mbombela with a statement, an intention of utter domination. And we saw that from the very first kickoff. And this is where the first bit of controversy comes from. As we know, our beloved coach, Mr. Rassie Rasmus, is known to how do I say this? Ruffle some feathers. He's known to ruffle feathers and to think out of the box, unlike most coaches. Now, for those who don't know what happened, basically from the first kickoff of the game, South Africa intentionally tried to force a scrum, and they succeeded by doing so. How, you ask? They did this. In the laws of rugby, at a kickoff, before the game starts, or at any kind of reset, the entire team needs to be behind the kicker in order for the kick to be a fair kick. Because all of the rules of rugby are written in order to give a fair contest for both the offensive and the defensive team. Now on Saturday, what happened was this. Manie Libbok, our starting number 10, he kicked the ball intentionally into the hands of Andre Esterhuizen, who was about a meter in front of him. Now, why that is important is because in rugby, there is the halfway line, and then just ahead of that line is the 10-meter line. In rugby, for a kick to be called a fair kick, it needs to have crossed that 10-meter line. Now, not only did we not cross the 10-meter line, but we also were ahead of the kicker. So, according to the laws of the game, an unfair kick needs to result in a scrum. So an unfair kick could be kicking the ball out on the full, it not crossing 10, being ahead of the kicker. There's a couple of things which I will now list on the screen so that you can see what I'm talking about, that constitute an unfair kick. And South Africa were able to manage this, and then, rightly so, according to the book, the referee gave Italy a scrum. Now, you're asking yourselves why on earth would we want to give Italy the ball from the first play? Now, how I would answer that question is with another question. Why would we boot the ball 45 meters down the pitch and allow Italy to possibly get a couple of phases down the field with the ball and then try kick further down to reclaim territory? Instead, why not force a scrum in the middle of the field where we back our scrum? As a Springboks, we back our scrum immensely. So why not give them the ball in their hand and let them do something with it, while also utilizing our biggest asset? Now, I don't think that this strategy would necessarily work against a team like New Zealand or Ireland or any kind of tier 1 team. But against a team like Italy, I think it was a great time for us to trial this out. It showed our intent, number one. It showed that we are here, we're going to dominate you physically, we are going to put our mark on you, you are going to feel us. That was the intention of that move. Now, it kind of backfired on us because we gave away a silly scrum infringement. But in my opinion, it was a very soft scrum infringement. I think you reset instead of calling for the short arm and giving a free kick. So it backfired on us, but I think that unsettled the Italian forward pack because after that scrum and the scrums to follow, we saw just absolute and utter dominance from the forward pack. It was incredible to see how well they were scrumming. They improved a lot on the scrum from the previous week. They were all pushing in unison, which I really liked. And if you could hear well through the TV, you could hear their call. This comes from our scrum coach, where he'll say mark lane, and it's basically a call for them to kind of load down on their feet. And when they say fire, you just see just a unit, just 8 men just firing right into the shoulders of the next forward pack, which was pretty incredible. But this has caused an absolute kerfuffle on social media. You have the typical Down Under and New Zealand commentators saying it's against the spirit of the game. You have the Irish whinge bags who are complaining that Rassie needs to serve some sort of ban for even allowing this. It's been an absolute in fact, it's a gross overreaction of a simple innovation, and a legal innovation, might I say. Now, within the South African camp, the coaching staff, should I say, they have various coaches. They have a forward coach, they have a defense coach, they have a strength and conditioning coach, and they also have an officials and refereeing committee. Now, for those of you who don't know, and I'll put a picture of his face on the screen now, this man's name is Jakub Pieper. Jakub Pieper is one of the most renowned referees. He's a South African, and he's one of the most renowned referees. He's coached in semi-finals of World Cups, quarterfinals of World Cups. I don't believe he's ever refereed a final, but he is a very well-renowned referee. And he works with Rassie. He's kind of, for those who know rugby, he's the Jerome Garcia of for South Africa. Jerome Garcia is a French ref, and France was kind of the first team to kind of pioneer this idea where we can use referees and officials as a part of your coaching staff, because the rules of rugby are there for us to use. They aren't there for us to exploit, but to work around. And for the level-headed and neutral, non-biased commentators, even though there's no such thing as having a no bias, but for those commentators who've actually looked at the law, they've seen that, okay, this is within the laws of the game. There is nothing intrinsically wrong about this. The question comes here is this morally right? Does this slow down the pace of the game, which World Rugby at the moment are trying to speed up? And if I'm being honest, my observation is that it does. It slows the game down a little bit, but also, are we just going to change all of the rules whenever any kind of innovation comes up, whether it's by South Africa or any kind of team? You cannot take away excellence from a coaching staff for doing their job. It is their job to find out if it's possible to deploy and do these kinds of things within games. And also, if it's such a problem and you're against it, why not just do it yourselves? Do you know what I mean? But again, this also stems from the whole bomb squad situation where everyone was having a hissy fit, particularly New Zealand and Irish fans. If you have such a problem with the bomb squad, why not just do it yourself? But because not every single international, even tier 1 teams have the same depth as South Africa, they can't do certain things that South Africa can do. Now, I love what Rassie said on Twitter. He said this. He said, in response to this whole kickoff drama, he said, I guess one can always argue what is against the spirit of the game. Some teams avoid scrums and other teams make sure that they get scrums. Who's wrong? And he is absolutely right. How do you determine what is lawful and what is unlawful? To avoid scrums or to generate scrums? For example, if you remember back to the France semi-final, where France kicked the ball into our half and Damien Willemse, he catches the ball in the 22 and he calls a mark. And from the mark, he calls a scrum, basically saying, okay, we're going to catch the ball and we're going to cause a scrum here. That was a very clear intention of us wanting to generate a scrum. But you see other teams, when they have options of either taking a scrum or a line out or taking a tap, most of them, if they know that they don't back their scrummaging game, they will lean towards taking a tap or a line out and avoiding a scrum. You see it happen. The next time you watch a rugby game, I want you to see the decisions that are made when it comes to either having an option of a line out or a scrum, and that'll tell you a lot about the confidence of the forward pack and the confidence of the coaching staff regarding how well they scrum. You will see it very, very clear and plain. But yeah, that was and for me something that I was absolutely gobsmacked about. I did not expect to see that from the first kickoff, but Rassie Erasmus is one of the most ingenious minds that rugby has ever seen. For the football fans who are listening to this, he is the mixture of Arsene Wenger, Pep Guardiola, and Jose Mourinho all into one brain. He has innovated the sport. Him and Eddie Jones have both innovated the sport in ways that are absolutely incredible. And another coach that I'll mention is Steve Hansen, the former All Blacks coach, who just had an attacking mind that you could just not believe. But yeah, otherwise, looking at the game at a whole, it was a really, really good game to watch for the spectator. I believe that we kind of addressed the questions that were looming over the Springboks from the previous week. For example, the lineouts. The lineouts this week were significantly better, except for the 2 lineouts we lost when Jan-Hendrik Wessels came off of the bench. But in my opinion, I believe that's a situation of timing and chemistry. But we also addressed getting quick ball from the breakdown. Grant Williams, wow, what a player. I will address him in detail further on in this section, but I believe we addressed some of those looming questions that were worrying for Springboks fans in the previous week. But I will say, though, one thing that I believe I'll give Italy credit for is they were still able to slow down our ruck speed and the breakdown speed that we were looking for. They intentionally were slowing us down by falling to the wrong side or taking extra long to roll away. And if we have a referee who's a bit lax on the whistle regarding calling those various infringements, you have a situation where Italy are able to get away with the legal dark arts that they deployed, and I'll give full credit to Italy. Same thing they did to the Springboks in the previous week. They were able to combat that. Obviously, it was a little bit better for the Springboks this week. We were able to contest better. It was good having the likes of Peter Steph Dutoy in the squad, being able to get to breakdowns, as well as Ruan Urquia as well, who did well in the breakdowns, in my opinions. Even though he's lanky and tall and a very big guy, but he did well in getting down and being able to kind of be there first in breakdown contests. So now I want to move to the player ratings. Yeah, starting off with our number one, Thomas du Toit. Thomas du Toit, he plays for Bath in the UK. He's a great prop, but he got hooked at around 30 minutes into the game because of a few scrummaging errors that the box staff picked up. He tried to redeem himself with ball in the hand, but it wasn't enough to keep him on, honestly. And for me, this was very worrying because it kind of shows that besides Ox, who in that, and a friend of mine actually pointed this out first, so shout out Glebo, my guy. He pointed this out saying, who within the Springbok camp can be a replacement for Ox? I mean, we don't have, sadly, a depth in loose head props anymore. For example, if you think back in our history, we've had Tendai Tawarira, I mean, and before then we had Oosturant, but when Oosturant, Tendai Tawarira, moving on then to kind of Tawarira's predecessor, no, I don't think that's the word, but Steven Kitsoff coming after Tendai, a beast, and then from Kitsoff we saw the introduction of Ox, but even within Ox and Kitsoff you had Trevor Nyakane, who's also a really good prop who can play both loose head and tight head. I think we're kind of very thin in that aspect where you have a player of Thomas du Toit's nature who is not up to scratch regarding where we need our loose head prop to be regarding scrummaging. And we saw that from when Oxenchair came onto the field. So I think that's some food for thought for the forward coaches and just the general Springboks coaching staff. Moving to our hooker, Malcolm Marx, I believe he had an 8 out of 10 performance. That's my player rating for him, 8 out of 10. Oh, sorry. Thomas du Toit, for me, I believe he had a 4 out of 10 game. And yeah. Moving on to Malcolm Marx, as I said, I believe it's an 8 out of 10 performance for him. I mean, if consistency had a face, it'd be Malcolm Marx. He didn't really put a foot wrong at the set piece or in support, running and in ball carrying. He was immaculate in the way he was able to guide the maul, leading to a 20-second test try for him. He also kind of commanded the scrum really, really well. I really like Marks at hooker at the moment. Moving on to our tight head prop, number 3, Wilco Louw. Wilco Louw, I believe he had a 7 out of 10 performance. He squeezed out 2 scrum penalties, forcing 2 penalties from his side of the scrum, which one of them led to the second try that the Boks scored. He was able to impose himself in the tackle and also being great at the breakdown as well. He was another player who was also really good at the breakdown, and he absolutely busted a gut to get himself in the correct areas. But he also did get a yellow card, but I'm not really gonna be too hard on him because it didn't necessarily have much bearing on the game and on the scoreboard either. It just left us on the field with 13 men, but looking at the scoreline, it didn't necessarily affect us. But yeah, great performance from Wilco. Really excited to see him in that number 3 position. Now moving on to our captain for the fixture, Salman Murat. Where do I even start with Salman Murat? Yeah. Unfortunately, I give him a 4 out of 10 performance. He was patchy, very, very patchy, where he'd do one thing right, a second thing bad, and it got to a point where it was a compounding effect of mistakes. And number one, as a captain and as starting for the Boks in an enforcer position, even though some people might say he's not an enforcer like Etzebeth is, but I'm sorry, if you're playing for the Boks in the number 4 jersey, you need to have a level of imposition into the game. You need to be able to impose yourself and be a bully in some sense, and be an enforcer. In the words of Peter Steph du Toit, as jy is bang, jy moet sê. Salman Murad, for me, had a very, very scared game. He didn't carry well, he didn't tackle well, he was running sideways more than head into contact. It was almost like he was trying to avoid contact. He had a very, very average game, but the fact that he was our captain and he had a very scared performance, that's why I give him a 4 out of 10. He's a great player, and is he ready for elite test rugby yet? I don't believe so. I don't think that he's ready for that. But again, for whatever reason, the coaching staff back him, and yeah, hopefully he's able to prove us wrong. But I know that there was a lot of people who were not particularly impressed with how he performed. Moving on to our number 5, Ruan Norkia.
And sets that ruck emphatically so. Well. Take a look at that. A line outlet on the Ruan Norkia. Another advantage to the Springboks. Williams gets it away. Snap ball to Caden Moody. Bouncing off defenders. The Caden Moody.
I'm not taken down for copyright reasons, but this move that happened in general play stems from inspiration that Rassie and the coaching staff received from an under 14B team from Paul Roos. Basically, how this move works is it came off of a line out. It was a full pack of 8, came off of a line out. The ball went to the back line and they hit a crash ball in the right side of the field. And now, those same players who were lifting at the line out where this move started are now all lined up in a line out formation. So Grant Williams takes the ball and he tosses it up to Ruan Norkia as if it's a line out, but it's in general play. And he comes down and they form a maul, which eventually then lead to a try. Again, another bit of controversy that was taking the entire internet by storm. This over here is kind of where it gets a little bit more gray area, unlike the first innovation by Rassie. Because essentially, how are you able to play a man in the air? Because if you infringe him in the air, it's a penalty. If you illegally sack him, as in bring him down to the ground illegally, it's a penalty. So now you ask yourself the question, is this now bending the laws? Or is this also just innovation within the rules? I still believe that this is innovation within the rules, trying to take my bias out of it, because we've seen this in a multitude of variations. This didn't just start with the Springboks. We've seen this happen in the French leagues over some years ago. It's happened in the French league before. It's happened in the English league as well. So this is not a new innovation, and this idea of creating mauls in the middle of play is also not something new that the Springboks have done. If you take yourself back to 2019 in the final against England, something similar happened where the Springboks set up in a kind of wedge shape, in like a triangular wedge shape in the middle of the field, and essentially ran with the ball into the English defenders, and they created a maul, which then evidently ended up being a penalty, which we then got 3 points off of. So this is nothing new. But obviously, controversy is controversy, and people just enjoy hearing their own voices talk about a subject. But in my opinion, it's a little bit of a gross overestimation of quote-unquote bending the rules. But anyway, I digress. Moving on to our number 6, and I'll kind of get through the next 3 pretty quickly. Margaret van Staden, I think he had an 8 out of 10 performance. He was really exceptional as a blind side flanker. He was everywhere. He on the ball, off the ball, at the breakdown. He just was an absolute workhorse and showed us why he is right now our starting number 6. He had a great game. Now moving on to Pieter-Steph du Toit, our number 7. He didn't do anything really flashy, but he just carried well, tackled well. You could see it took him some time to get into the game. Understandable that this is his first game back into Test rugby, South African Test rugby after injury. So yeah, Pieter-Steph du Toit gets a 7 out of 10 from me. Jasper Wiese, our number 8. Jasper. He started off well, but for me, ill discipline I can't excuse. And the red card for me, whether you think it's a red or not, the card was given and he got a sin bin. I thought it might have been a 20-minute red card. I don't know what the current ruling is regarding red cards, because they trialed out a 20-minute red card situation. I don't know where that is currently in the game of rugby. I'll have to do some more research on that. But yeah, he left us on the field with 14 men for a majority of the game, really. So not necessarily having a great day out, but yeah. He will now have to face an independent foul play review with a board of people who will decide whether he gets a ban or what happens to Jasper Wiese right now. And this is kind of worrying a little bit for the South African camp, because the Rugby Championship is coming in just about less than a month now, or a month actually almost. So we hopefully will see Jasper Wiese being able to play in those Rugby Championship games. Or anyway, I personally hope that he is back in time for the New Zealand Test matches anyway. I think we'll be able to handle Australia with a second choice 8 and probably Evan Roos, or Cobus Wiese, his brother, but he needs to be around for those New Zealand games. Now, moving on to our backline, Grant Williams and Manie Libbok, both of them, I give them an 8 out of 10 performance. Grant Williams had one of his best games in the green and gold jersey. He completely controlled the tempo. He had sharp service with the ball. His box kicking was some of the best that I've seen. He was just hanging those balls, and they were just hanging for time, giving players like Edwill, Kane and Moody time to be able to get to the receiver and be able to create a pressure situation for the Italian squad, which worked a couple of times. So he had a great game. And his connection with Manie Libbok was absolutely electric. They played out of their socks this weekend, and proving why I think Grant Williams, and I'm calling it now, I think Grant Williams is going to be our starting scrum half going into the Rugby Championship. I think he's proved why he is the guy. I don't think there's, but besides Morne from the back, but again, he doesn't really have the experience that Grant does. And Grant is significantly quicker than Morne. But we'll see. The the depth in the scrum half role is tightening up. It's not as obvious as Faf starting and what you call this, and Gilbert on the bench anymore. You have these two young lighties who are giving the two veterans a run for their money, which is really good to see competitiveness within the squad. Now, moving on to Manie Libbok, man, I don't even know what to say about him. I mean, he lit up that opening quarter of play like a firework. I mean, he delivered sublime ball wide to set up Edwill for the mat of his first try. And he just managed the game really well. He was really smart when it came to kicking. Whoa, Engels. Kicking at the right time. He also managed the back line really, really well. Kind of keeping everybody on their line. He just is a general, and I really like to see that. For example, thinking back to the first game against Italy, it felt like the pace of the game was getting dictated by the scrum half more than from the back, which for me is very strange because traditionally a fly half is the tempo setter, but in that game on Saturday, Manie was the puppeteer, the orchestrator of that back line, and he did a phenomenal job. Despite also missing 2 kicks, but the fact that I've even seen some articles try to spin the narrative that Manie Libbok is not a good fly half because of those 2 kicks, let's just stop there, please. If you watch rugby and you know rugby, Manie Libbok is one of the best there is in the business. All right, so this narrative of that Manie Libbok is not a good number 10 needs to stop, please. Now, moving on to our winger, Makazole Mapimpi. I believe he had an 8 out of 10 game. I mean, I challenge someone. Nay, I encourage someone to go and find a game where Makazole Mapimpi does not play well for the Springboks. I know he kind of had a lull with the Sharks, but for the Springboks, I dare you to go try and find a game where Makazole Mapimpi does not have a level of effort and involvement in the game. Please go find it. He had great line breaks. He was able to get 2 turnovers. He was great at the breakdown, and also a try and an assist. Phenomenal performance for Makazole. Now, Andre Esterhuizen, the number 12, taking the jersey from Damien Delendi. He was an absolute battering ram in the midfield. He was able to gain ground and gain really good meters on 11 of the 12 carries that he had. He gave the Springboks front foot advantage in the midfield. He was also really good at getting to the breakdown and just being able to secure the ball in the midfield. He had a really outstanding game, and I'm really excited to see that he is getting more minutes and more trust from the coaching staff. Now, moving on to Kanan Moody. This boy is electric. He's great defensively. He was able to help choke the Italian defense in the midfield, and particularly when Wiese went off, he was able to kind of calm that midfield down and was able to impose himself physically. His footwork was electric, and he also showed really good signs of strength on the try he scored. He was able to break the line, bump a player, and then also carry along a player until he scored the try. That's just amazing strength from Kanan Moody. And here are some stats about him that are really, really good and interesting. He has played 13 test matches for the Boks. He has 13 caps. He has 13 wins. He has 1 Rugby World Cup, and he has 1 Rugby Championship. Mind you, he is only 22 years old. He is only 22 years old. We have possibly the next 8 years, 10 years with this boy. I mean, if you look at the likes of Delendi, Pollard, who are kind of veterans now, Kanan Moodley is only 22. He's a lifey. We have him at least for the next 2 World Cups if he's able to remain fit. Now, moving on to our man of the match, Edwill van Merwe. After having to wait 13 months to get his second test cap after an injury, he came in with an intention to show why he is in the squad. He is addicted to scoring. I mean, he bagged an amazing brace over the weekend. He was decent under the high ball, and if he wasn't catching the ball and recovering it, he was knocking it back to our teammates. I mean, he is really giving Cheslin and Kurtley Arnser some things to think about, because after a performance like Edwill showed, those 2 boys need to come out and really show why they deserve to have the 11 or 14 jersey. And I mean, we saw in the previous week against Italy, Cheslin Kolbe kind of had a quiet game. It's one of the first games where Cheslin didn't really do much, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. You guys let me know in the comments below. Do you think that Edwill is warranted a start in the opening game of the rugby championship against Australia, or do you still believe that both Cheslin Kolbe and Kurtley Arnser at this point in time still need to maintain the starting jerseys of 11 and 14? I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But the performance he gave us gives us a lot of things to think about. Moving on to our final player, Willie Leroux. Willie. He is now a veteran, having his 100th test. Willie now moves into a very exclusive group of people. I think there's only 8 players in history to ever get 100 tests. Notable names such as Victor Matfield, Tendai Tawarira, Brian Habana. You have players such as Victor Matfield, which I think I already mentioned, Eben Etzebeth, Percy Montgomery. You have these players who are legends in their own right. So for him to get into the squad really shows that Willie's had a pretty good career. 2 World Cups, 2 rugby championships, if I'm not mistaken, or three rugby championships, if I'm not mistaken. He has a Lions tour under his belt. He's had a really, really good career. Hats off to him. But unfortunately, he had a very, very average game on Saturday. He is not at the level anymore where he's going to be, he's not at the level anymore where, in my opinion, he needs to be starting test matches. For me, I believe that Willie needs to move into a mentorship role like Frans Steyn did. Frans Steyn was in and amongst the squad for a while, never really got many minutes, but was around to give kind of a cool head, having experience within the 15 jersey. But I don't believe Willie's at a stage where he is on the mark for elite level rugby. I don't know what the coaching staff is going to do with Willie now that he has his 100th test. In my opinion, I see him moving out slowly, or him being slowly phased out. But a mate of mine, again, Tebo, shout out broski, he mentioned that probably in the games, we'll probably still keep Willie around until we get another kind of world-class-ish player, third choice fullback, which sounds crazy to say, but he's not wrong. Until we get another third choice fullback, Willie's gonna remain, because I mean, we can put Sasha at 15, because the current pecking order for 15 or the fullback role kind of goes as Damien Willemse as the first choice. Then we have Apelele Fassi as second choice, and I guess Villiers had third choice, but now we also saw Sasha Feinberg and Gomezulu play 15, who, granted, he didn't have a great game because he didn't really need to do much. He didn't really have a chance to get ball in hand, to kick well. So, I don't know. Was Sasha being played at 15 kind of testing to see, can we slowly start to phase Villiers out of the squad? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens leading into the Rugby Championship. There's a lot of if, buts, and maybes right now. And I think the coaching staff, which are trying to get to some absolutes now. So, yeah. The team in general, I believe they had about a 7.5 out of 10 performance. A huge improvement from the previous week, but still some things to work on. Notably, number 1, speed at the breakdown. I think with Siya Kolisi coming into the squad, which he should be playing in the game against Georgia, I will have to look at the team sheet, which I'll go through towards the end of this video. And also, number 2, I believe that we need to get better at our variety of kicks. We kind of saw glimpses of that over the weekend with Manie Libbok, kind of not just kicking for territory and depth, but kicking for tactical reasons, so that we can, while advancing the ball, also be gaining territory. So, but I mean, we didn't really put many foots wrong in the backline. So I just think those two aspects of the game. Also, third point is, let's just get more and more consistent from the line out. Against Georgia, personally, I would like to see at least 2 scores from the line out, or if we're able to somehow generate enough pressure to get a penalty off of a line out, which we did, I believe, twice over the weekend. So if we can keep this up, it will really show that we're working hard at the line out and not just focusing too much on the scrum. But I mean, the scrum is going to be the scrum. We're dominant in the scrum. That's our bread and butter. But I really want to see us improve in those 3 facets of the game. Now, moving on to the New Zealand versus France game. Yeah, wow. This was just a demolition job. An absolute spanking, if you will, from New Zealand in terms of what they showed this French team. Now, this goes into question in terms of France. Did they get bit in the bum for sending 20 uncapped players to New Zealand to play in New Zealand for the first time? Who knows? They showed a decent performance in the first test match, but in this second test match, it was all New Zealand. New Zealand were able to wipe the floor with France. And some notable players from the New Zealand side is a man who I mentioned last week who took the jersey of Scott Barrett, is Patrick Tuipolatu. He had a great game, Patrick. He was imposing as a second rower. I mean, he had a couple early line-out steals, as well as some stealing from the breakdown. And for a big man, he gets down really quickly to the breakdown. Yeah, he was great in the first half and leading to the second half. But otherwise, Patrick, for me, will give Scott Barrett and the rest of the coaching staff some things to think about regarding team selection leading into the Rugby Championship. Now, looking at the flanker for New Zealand, Tupovai, he had one of his more better defensive performances. He topped the All Blacks tackle count in the first half, and he also had a penalty go in favor of New Zealand due to his jackling and his efforts at the breakdown. And he also scored a try up the middle of the field because of his great support running when RDS was able to break the line. And that leads perfectly to the next player I want to mention. RDS, man. Playing in the number 7 jersey. He's a big captain, and a big captain for big games. I don't understand why Scott Barrett is the captain, because whenever RDS wears the captain's armband, we don't see less than an 8 out of 10 performance from him. And to come back in a big game as a captain in his hometown of Wellington, I mean, he was threatening up the middle of the field early on in the game, stripping tackles, being able to get to the breakdown for turnovers. He had a nice recovery from a barrier chip kick moments later in the first half, and also set up a very good trick play to set up Cam Roygaard to go and score in the corner for their first try. RDS, for me, is one of those players that it doesn't matter where in the world he plays, whether he plays in New Zealand, in Japan, where he plays, he's one of those players who is just above the level. He's just phenomenal. Now, Cam Roygaard had also a pretty decent game. He was probably the best backline player in my opinion. The early box kicking strategy, which the All Blacks trialed out again, which is not necessarily conducive to the game plan that Razor normally plays. Razor normally likes to have ball in hand unless they can't advance. Then he'll kick normally into spaces where the defense can rush up. But box kicking is not normally in the game plan for Razor. But Cam scored a really good try as well from a trick play, as I previously mentioned. But he looked dangerous when sniping around the rucks. He gave me some Aaron Smith vibes around the rucks. He had a really good game. But otherwise, looking at the rest of the back line, I don't necessarily think many of them had a really, really good game. Beauden Barrett was pretty quiet. He had an okay game, scored. He assisted, but he had a pretty quiet game. Jordie Barrett started well, but obviously went off in the 28th minute with a HIA, head injury assessment check. But he also did give a nice assist to Rieko Ioane. But the rest of the backline was pretty average, which now is going to be interesting next week, or this week rather. I haven't seen the team sheet come out yet. It's going to be very interesting to see how New Zealand is able to set up for the third test against France. Now, England versus Argentina. This was a very interesting game. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this game because for me it was one of the more boring games of the weekend. Not just because it wasn't that high scoring, but I just think that we saw an England team who was just leaps and bounds better than that Argentina squad. Simple as that. I mean, you had the likes of players who really played well in this team. Is Finn Baxter, the prop. He was able to generate some good scrum pressure. He was able to get into the double digits again for tackle counts. And also he only spent 57 minutes on the field, so he had a really good game. You had Joey Hayes at number 3 as well, who had a really good scrummaging game. He's a force to be reckoned with in the scrum. He had a match leading 14 tackles, and he only left the field after 60 minutes as well. So you can see that these two props here, they are really good in terms of their physicality when it comes to tackling. But I mean, in general, you had really good games from Ben Curry, although he was given a yellow card for a poor tackle on Pablo Matera. There's no complaints about that. But I mean, besides that, he had a really good game. I mean, he had a great shift at the rucks. allowing England to play at a good tempo. He played with his head up most of the time, which always adds an extra dimension on England's attack. He surprisingly for a flank has really good feet. He put in a grubber kick through at one point, and it almost led to a try. So it did lead to a try, after an offload to Guy Pepper. So really good performance for him. Sam Underhill, this is one of England's most consistent players. He had a really, really good game. He was able to make 8 good tackles in 57 minutes. He was able to get to the breakdowns pretty quickly. He saw a lot more of the ball this week. And yeah, I mean, he has a military grade defense. He's a really solid number 7, and I think one to look out for. And one that I'm very surprised he did not make it into the British and Irish Lions squad. But anyhow, moving on to some notable players in the back line. George Ford, the number 10. For me, George Ford is what England have been looking for years, but for whatever reason, he gets so disrespected by the English team. England has been looking for a Johnny Wilkinson replacement. And in my opinion, George Ford is the closest thing to that. And now I say that obviously with a pinch of salt, but if you want a player like Wilkinson, George Ford, since Wilkinson, has been the closest thing we've had, because they didn't like Owen Farrell at 10, they didn't like Marcus Smith at 10, they didn't like many 10s. And George Ford, for me, looking at the history of the 10 jersey for England, he's the closest thing we've seen to Wilkinson. Now, he had a great game. He had England's backline, kind of moving way more efficient than they did in the previous week. He was able to kind of cover the backfield pretty well. He had a great tactical kicking game, which was just a step above Argentina's, and he kicked well from the tee again. So he didn't have a perfect performance, but he had a pretty good outing. Next player is probably Seb Atkinson. He kind of had a quiet game in the first half, but his game was mostly defined by defensive contributions last week, and he looked far more comfortable and composed on the ball this week. So Seb, had a pretty good game. But yeah, Tom Roebuck also had a pretty decent game. He was really good in the air. He's normally really good in the air. And same with Freddie Stewart. Freddie Stewart also really good in the air. Surprised he did not get a call up to the British and Irish Lions squad. But anyhow, now looking at the combined 15, looking at the combined players of the weekend for me. This was really tough because you had two teams of New Zealand and South Africa who had really good squads, and their score lines kind of matched, in terms of just utter domination. And you have a team like England and Argentina who kind of had very average games, But nonetheless, I have tried to be as impartial as possible, even though it's not possible for me to be fully impartial, but I will try my best nonetheless. Oxenchair, I believe, is the best loose head prop of the weekend. He had a great game, as I previously mentioned. Second is Cody Taylor. Cody Taylor, the New Zealand hooker. I mean, I have nightmares and I have to rack my brain every single time the question gets posed to me, who's a better hooker, Cody Taylor or Malcolm Marx? It does my head in because I can never come to a decisive conclusion. Who do you guys think? Do you think Malcolm Marx is a better hooker than Cody Taylor? Would you believe Cody Taylor is better than Malcolm Monks? Let me know down in the comment section below. Now, Joe Hayes from England had a really, really good game. He slightly trumps Wilco Low just because of the whole yellow card situation. Moving on to 4, Patrick Tuapolato, for me, had a great game for the All Blacks. Really giving them something to think about regarding Scott Barrett. 5, I give it to Ruan Norkia. Again, as I mentioned, really good game. 6, I give it to Tupovai. Tupovai, New Zealand player, had a really good game. Was pretty solid, and I would love to see him start more. He's kind of taking the Sam Frizzell role, which we saw a couple of years back. At 7, none other but excuse me. At 7, none other than Ardie Savea. Savea had a really good game, dominating the breakdown, the attack, running from the forwards. He was just an all-time leader. That there was a captain's performance, unlike Salman Murad. But anyway, at number 8, 8 was tricky. I don't necessarily know who to give it to, just because it was kind of a very quiet one for the number 8s. But if I really had to give it to anyone, I think I'd give it to Tom Willis from England. Ben Earl, playing for the British and Irish Lions right now, is kind of a miss for England, but Tom Willis has kind of stepped in and he's kind of played well, so I'll give it to Tom as number 8. Moving on to the 9, this was tough. I struggled whether I give it to Cameron Roigard or I give it to Grant. Oh, this is tough. For the sake of the argument, I am going to give it to Cameron Roigard. Oh, no, I can't. I have to give it to Cameron Roigard just because he scored a try. That's tough. They both had really good games, similar games in fact. But I'll give it to Roigard just because he scored a try. But yeah. Then moving on to 10, none other than Manie Libbok. Great game for Manie. At 11, I give it to Makazole Mapimpi. There wasn't a better winger for me on the day than Makazole, apart from Edwill, obviously. But playing at 11, I don't think there was a better 11 who played. At 12, I also struggled at 12 as well, because I had Seb Atkinson, who really had a good game. And then I also had players like Geordie Barrett, who disappointed me. And then also another player like Andre Esterhazen. So just because of the fact that Seb Atkinson is kind of new to the squad and just in his second test was able to really play well, I'll give it to Atkinson. At 13, I give it to Kane Moody, absolute player. At 14, I give it to Edwill van der Merwe. And at 15, I will give it to Freddie Stewart. I will try to put this up on the screen so that you can see. I will put the combined starting 15 players of the week and their respective rankings on the side of their names. And tell me, do you guys think that I got it absolutely wrong? Do you think that I should never speak about sports ever again? Or do you think that there's some truth to what I'm saying? Let me know down in the comment section below. And now, just before I close, I have just seen that the Springboks have released their squad for the game against Georgia. Let me try quickly pull this up so that we can have a squiz before I wrap up. Now, this game against Georgia, I believe that we are going to see a Springbok squad. I haven't seen the squad yet, so a Springbok squad that is going to be pretty dominant in the sense of we're going to see a lot of people coming back either from injury, or we're going to see a more dominating squad. I think we're going to try put a lot of points past Georgia. Springboks squad. Sorry guys, I'm just busy searching this up online. Squad announcement. Here we go. At number 1, we have Bone Venter. He is uncapped. Bone Venter. Well, that's going to be very interesting. We have at number 2, we have Marnus van Merwe, who is also uncapped. And then at 3, we have Nethling Forshare, who is also uncapped. Wow. A front 3 which we have never seen. Three uncapped players, which is very interesting. I think it's a great game to give them a run against Georgia, which will be fantastic. And then at 4, we have Eben Etzebeth. We have the enforcer coming back onto the field. And then we also have Ruan Nortje, who's going to be also very cool to see how those two play together, Eben and Ruan Nortje. Then we have Sia Khaleesi, also coming back as captain, which is really, really great. Sia Khaleesi coming back in the 6 jersey, and then Peter Steph du Toit coming in at the 7 jersey. This is a World Cup, two-time World Cup winning flank combination, and I think we're going to see a biggie destruction on the field at the breakdown from those two lads. Moving on to our number 8, Goergia Wiese, the brother of Jasper Wiese. Quite ironic, to be fair. Goergia Wiese will be taking the number 8 jersey. He only got his first cap last week, coming off of the bench, but this week the second Wiese brother has been given the nod to start at the 8 jersey. At 9, we have Granty Williams, Boyki. We have Granty at number 9. He had a really great game last weekend. And then at 10, we have Sasha Feinberg Ngomezulu. He has 9 caps for the Boks. And it would be really great to see him start. I'm curious to see what the connection between Sasha and Grant is, as opposed to the combination between Grant and Manie is. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how that compares, because it's two fly halves who have similar-ish games in the sense of they both love to attack, play running rugby, play tactical kicking rugby. But we'll see what happens with that combination. At number 11, we have Kurtley Arendse taking the jersey from Makazole Mapimpi. Kurtley Arendse, I'm very excited to see what he does. I think he'll need to have a really good game considering the performance that Makazole put up, as well as Edwill put up. Now, back at 12, we have Damien Dalendi, standard procedure, Mr. Consistent. At 13, we have Kanan Moody. Kanan Moody, really happy to see him getting another start before the Rugby Championship. At 14, we have Edwill van der Merwe. And then at 15, we have Apalele Fassi. This backline, to me, has to be one of the most explosive in world rugby. Grant at 9, Sasha at 10, Kurtley at 11, Damien at 12, 13 we have Kanan, Edwill at 14, 15 at Fassi at 15. And as a team going up against Georgia, in my opinion, I would like to see 7-8 tries from this backline. I know that sounds ambitious, but I would love to see 7-8 tries come from this backline. You just have explosive energy. You have serial scorers, people who are just addicted to scoring. Like Kurtley Arendse has 95 points, 19 tries, and only 25 caps. You have players like Grant William having 5 tries and only 17 caps. I mean, it just, for me, this screams we want to score tries this weekend. In our forward department, it's going to be very interesting to see how this front 3 play. I'll be 100% honest. I don't know much about the 2 props. Marnus, I've seen play a little bit, but Nethling Forshare and Bone Fanta, I haven't really paid too much attention to their game, so it'll be very, very interesting to see how they play. But moving on to the bench, Bongi Bonambi is on the bench at 16. Thomas Dutoy is getting another chance to redeem himself at 17. You have Vincent Koch, who is going to be playing at the 18 jersey. Then you have RDS at the 19 jersey. Quagga Smith, who will be playing in the 20. 21, Faf de Klerk on the bench. Then at 22, you have Andre Pollard, who will be playing, as the replacement Flyhalf. And then you have Damian Willemse back in the squad at 23. So, yeah, it's going to be a very interesting game against Georgia. My quick score prediction. We normally batter Georgia, and that backline gives me a lot of confidence that we will do the same thing. So, I will be bold in saying that we will beat Georgia. Sure. 65-7. 65-7 is my prediction. I don't see Georgia really getting a hold of the game. We'll see. Unlikely, but I mean, I think 65 is actually me being a little bit modest. Let me actually look at what is the history between Georgia versus South Africa. History. Because if the history is saying something else, then yeah, I might just say that these guys are going to get absolutely pummeled. Yeah, look at this. No, we've beat them definitively by 40 in, yeah, this is dark, in the last, sure, yeah. We average 40 against them in every single game that we play. So the last time we played them, we won 40-49. That was back in 2021. Prior to that, we won 55-0. So yeah, 65-7. Let's say that 65-7. I believe that'll be the score line. Guys, let me know, what do you think about this week's team selection? What do you think about the Springboks' performance in the previous week? Do you think that the innovations that were made by Rassie are innovations, or are they just bending the laws? Let me know down in the comments section below. And if you enjoyed this video, like this video, subscribe to this to my channel. I'm really trying to grow this channel. And if you're listening on the audio platforms, give this a 5-star rating. But if you don't believe it's 5-star, that's fine. Just be honest as possible. But again, guys, thank you for tuning into Retang Does Sports.